This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On today's show, WWE mixing up the commentary teams again, and this won't be the final time. Does he swerve when he signs? And Netflix finally says yes. This is your DocNJock Wrestling Podcast review of AEW's All In, and this is your go-home show for Bash at Berlin. Oh my goodness, it is pay-per-view bonanza. Pay-per-view last week, pay-per-view this week, pay-per-view next week. We've got them all covered. We're going to run them all down. We're going to go through all the matches, and we're going to give you our insight. Helping me do it all, he's the one. He's the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Cuz it was a big week of wrestling. Lots of good stuff going on. CM Punk, Drew McIntyre really took their feud to the next level. You had Bronson Reed do some damage to Braun Strowman. You got Uncle Howdy to show up at Raw. It was so much to talk about. That's before the pay-per-view. And then you had All In my mind, truly delivered. A lot of great memories and a lot of moments where fans could pop. But unfortunately for All In, I don't know if you want to start there or with WWE, you tell me. It just, certain performers had the chance, had the ball given to them, but it was dropped. And it was intriguing. But at the very least, AEW put their best foot forward to tell stories and got some realistic payoffs, I think, to set forth the next few months for their programming. I thought AEW really lived up to the billing for the week that they needed to have.
Yeah, let's start with AEW because this was a massive show. Took place last Sunday. Took place in the middle of the afternoon. And look, when AEW gives you these long, big cards that they have, I actually prefer them a little bit earlier in the day because it allows you to get through them and you're not sluggish the next day at work. But this was another one of their massive pay-per-views. This is the one thing that we say often about AEW. Sometimes the storytelling to get you involved in what's going on in the pay-per-view, not great. But the matches on the pay-per-view card are usually fantastic. And you're right. There were a couple matches that did drop the ball. We'll talk about those. But let's start with this pre-show because they tried to get everybody on this card. We had a 16-man tag team match that kicked off the pre-show. We had the Don Callis family represented by Kyle Fletcher. We had Rocky Romero, Kip Sabian, the Dynamite Kid, Tommy Billington, Top Flight's Dante Martin and Darius Martin, Action Andretti, and Leo Rush taking on Private Parties, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn, the Premier Athlete, Arya Daivari, the Dark Order's Alex Reynolds, John Silver, Satnam Singh, Jay Lethal, and Shane Taylor's promotion, Anthony Ogogo. In this match, look, it's a pre-show match. Everybody's going to get in. Everybody's going to get some work in. Dante hits a crossover frog splash on Arya Daivari. They score the pin. We move on to the next match. Mixed tag match. This is what we had on our rundown when we were doing our picks. This was one of the first pre-show matches that were announced. This was Willow Nightingale and Tomohiro Ishii taking on Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway. In this match, Ishii and Hathaway mixed it up a lot more than I anticipated. Ishii ends up smashing Stokely with a running forearm, pins Stokely, and now because of the victory, Willow is going to get to choose the stipulation when she faces Statlander at this upcoming pay-per-view. We then have a 10-man tag match. And again, like I said, just trying to get everybody in on this card. We had the ROH World Tag Team Champions and ROH World Six-Man champions, the Natural Dustin Rhodes, the Von Erichs, ROH World Six-Man Champion Marshall Von Erich, and ROH World Six-Man Champion Ross Von Erich. The legendary they were led out by legendary Kevin Von Erich. ROH World Tag Team Champions, the Spanish God, Sammy Guevara. I don't know if you know it or not, but if you've been watching any ROH, but Sammy Guevara is back, and Sammy Guevara has been wrestling with Dustin Rhodes, and Dustin Rhodes is wrapped in all of this, obviously. And Shibata. They ended up taking on the Cage of Agony with Bishop Khan, Toa Leona, and then Brian Cage. You also had the Undisputed Kingdom's Matt Taven and Mike Bennett on this. this was one of those things where the end happened and all the baby faces basically got to get their work in. They got the win, and they got to move on. And that kind of set up what we had next, which was probably the biggest thing that took place on the pre-show. So you had all these matches, and we're getting ready for the main card, and you have Saraya come out with her family, and she is basically threatening to hold the show up because she doesn't have a match. She doesn't have a spot on this show. Only to have Jamie Hayter return, and she ends up kicking the shit out of Saraya and her family. And this led me to kind of think and wonder why they would bring Hayter back on a pre-show. This is a big return. Hayter hasn't been around for almost a year and a half, I want to say. And Jamie Hayter, at the time, she was one of your top women's champions. So to bring her back on a pre-show, to me, really feels like it kind of undermines her place in the company. And I'm wondering if she has maybe fallen in the ranks within the company, or maybe they're just not valuing her as much. Did you find it curious that they brought her back in the pre-show, not on the main card, not at the beginning, not in the middle? I felt like you could have did something different with Jamie Hayter to reintroduce her to the AEW world. And instead, you did it on kind of a throwaway moment in the pre-show.
Yeah, no doubt. I think everybody pointed it out to say, hey, wait a minute. This could have been a big return based on what she had brought to the table before. And it goes to show you, I just think that, Tony Khan sometimes drops the ball in regards to timing. And it's important, too, because it does signify to a lot of people, wait a minute, pre-show? Like, you couldn't have her kick off the show? A lot of people would have said kick off the show. It would have got a nice pop, a nice reaction for her. So, yeah, I thought it was a missed opportunity.
So then we get into the main card, and look, there were some weird pairings here, right? So you got Pac and Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli. They're competing in this ladder match for the AEW Trios Championships. You're also facing the Patriarchy, Christian Cage, Killswitch, and Nick Wayne. They are the defending champs. You've got the Bang Bang Gang with Juice Robinson and the Guns. And then you've got House of Black. You got Brody King, Buddy Matthews, and Malachi Black. How we get to Pac and Wheeler Yuta and Claudio teaming together, I don't understand. I feel like there needed to be a bigger build out of this backstory. Like, now is Pac a part of the BCC? Like, what's going on here? To me, it is really strange that these guys get lumped together. Then even more strange is that these guys end up winning this ladder match, and now they're the AEW Trios champions as they defeated the Patriarchy, they defeated the Bang Bang Gang, and they defeated House of Black. What are your thoughts on Pac getting paired with Yuta and Claudio? And should they make him an honorary member of the BCC? Is he a member of the BCC? What are your thoughts on this? Because to me, watching this match, I know with wrestling a lot of times we have to suspend disbelief. I had a hard time suspending disbelief with this specific match because I just could not put together why these guys are a team and how this works, because forever and a day, I feel like these guys at certain points have fought each other to the death. And look, I know things are going on with the Lucha Brothers. I know that they are transitioning to go to WWE. And I understand that's why you don't want to put these belts on them. But you should probably have figured out a different partner than Pac for these guys, right? Like, I get Pac's from the area. I understand that. But still, like, your booking's I feel like it's got to be better. Like, to me, this just doesn't make sense. What are your thoughts on Pac teaming and winning, not just teaming, but winning with Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli?
Right. Simply put, it didn't make sense. But look, it was an opportunity for a cheap pop. Pac didn't get his opportunity in previous moments, and so they wanted, an opportunity for the fans to get behind him. And look, I just think that the BCC kind of was established to have a big night. So Tony Khan's like, okay, let's give him a belt. Who can we throw in there? Oh, the hometown guy. And that's probably just how fast it went. And it is crazy because I think you've read and we've come across that so many people pitch ideas to Tony Khan, and then he sifts through the best ones, and he's the final person to make the call. And that's where his fandom, I just think, interrupts the logical sense of, like, he just thinks, oh, you know what, Pac winning a title, no problem. Does it make sense? I don't even think he asked that question. I think that because we got to get to the point where we got to let go of the fact of does it make sense running by Tony Khan's mind. He's just like, do I like it? Sure, let's do it. And that's it. And when you're the boss and you're the guy that's the booker, you can do those kind of things. But I do think that as the company evolves, if someone just were to say to Tony Khan, here's how you improve, just ask the very basic question, does this make sense and why? And once you do that, you can start to really take your company to places where people can go, hey, wait a minute, hey, this makes sense, this is important, and besides cheap pops, it does also elevate talent to put them in positions where the decisions make sense and elevate them. But look, for Pac and the BCC, it's a good moment. It was a good match, and I thought that, I started and said, okay, you know what? Everybody got their shit in, and I thought it looked good as a match, being that it was put together this way.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. To me, it's just like Tony has ideas and Tony runs with his ideas because there's nobody there to really stop him. There's no safeguards. I almost feel like it's like you can compare it to bumper bowling. I feel like there needs to be some guardrails sometimes for Tony Khan when he's doing these things and when he's booking these things. It'll be interesting to see where they go from here and what happens with Pac and what happens with his association with the BCC. Time will tell. So we'll have to wait and watch. Timeless Tony Storm ends up losing to Mariah May. Mariah May ends up defeating Timeless Tony Storm, and she is your new AEW Women's World Champion. I want to get your thoughts on this match because going into it, we felt like Mariah May, her heel turn was exceptional. It was fantastic. Only to have the ball kind of dropped as we were building to this and as we were getting closer to this match. But I felt like this match delivered. I thought this was one of the best matches on the card. I thought Mariah May really showed out. I thought Tony Storm had a really, really good match. And I felt like there was a really interesting story there where Tony Storm kind of showing a little bit of love for Mariah May, wouldn't use the shoe on her, but Mariah May had zero regard for Tony Storm and used the heel of the shoe on Tony Storm to get the championship. What did you make of this match?
Yeah, very impressed. I thought it delivered. And just like you said, simple psychology told the story of this match. And I thought Mariah May, in terms of looking at how this is going to go forward, I think she's a worthy champion and also another moment for her to share a moment in front of the crowd. So, look, in the end, it was a story that was built. And the good thing for AEW is the match at the pay-per-view lived up to the billing. And that's good for both. And I think that Mariah May is somebody that's going to be very valued in the company. And Tony Storm, I thought, putting somebody over like that really in the end is something that can also help both wrestlers. So really good kudos to them. I started that match as one that I was impressed with too.
All right, next we had Hook defeating Chris Jericho for the FTW Championship. We then transitioned into the Young Bucks defeating FTR and the Acclaim to retain the AEW Tag Team Championship. And then we got to the Casino Gauntlet match, which was a much anticipated match because we anticipated the debut of Ricochet. We got the debut of Ricochet. I did not anticipate Christian Cage winning this match, but Christian Cage is your winner of the Casino Gauntlet match. He'll now have the ability to have a match for the AEW World Championship. We'll get to who the champion is later on in this card. A couple of things coming out of here. One, were you surprised that Cage won this? And two, what did you make of the debut of Ricochet?
Thought it was good. I thought that his entrance was really solid. Look, he got pyro. It made him feel important. And the thing, though, is I just wish that AEW would also kind of invest in the character. I think that you kind of clearly are saying, okay, we like Ricochet. He's the guy that flips. And I know he wants to do that, but there's a character there. There's a why there. There's a purpose. I know he's starting to share it, but at the same token, when you saw what he did at Dynamite, it's kind of like, oh boy, his career is going to be short if he's going to be doing all these high-risk spots all the time. And really, you got to be selective because if there's such a thing as a law of diminishing return. We've seen this before, and I do think there's a strong character there that I hope that they flush out in terms of his desire, his purpose, what he can bring to the table besides clearly being a freak athlete. I thought it was great. The fans understood it. And it was cool that he got to keep his name, so that was always awesome. And I thought that, the crowd reacted accordingly. Christian Cage winning is a nice surprise, being of what happened to him on that night. So you got to have a nice heel based on, it probably signaled to everybody that once he won, maybe the inevitable was going to happen in the main event. So it's a little bit unfortunate. It's a little bit of foreshadowing of what happened. But Christian Cage has just had a nice run in AEW, and I think he's been able to tap into all the things that make him a good heel. And I think that his run is getting up there with the quality of work that he did in WWE.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when he takes on that defending champ. It'll be interesting to see if he's the guy who unseats that defending champ. We'll talk about that, like I said, later on. We're working our way to that main event. Really, really good main event, so continue to listen. Next, we had Will Ospreay defeating MJF to become the new AEW American/International champion. Not sure what we're going to call it yet. I thought it was a really good match. I thought the swerve of Daniel Garcia showing up, especially after all of the reports of Daniel Garcia looking to sign with WWE, possibly going to WWE. I did a little research before we started recording today. Daniel Garcia still hasn't signed an extension with AEW, so he may still end up in WWE, but I thought his addition into this match to hit MJF, I thought that was a nice little twist, help lead to Will Ospreay winning. I thought this was done really, really well. MJF shows up on Dynamite selling a neck injury after taking the Tiger Driver. I thought this was fantastic. I thought it was really well done. What were your thoughts on the match, and what were your thoughts of the addition of Daniel Garcia?
Perfect addition. Yeah, the match was great, lived up to the billing. To me, though, the note that I had outside of the match, which I'll talk about, they got to kind of combine the international title and the continental title. It's like two of the exact same belts. Just combine it. Have the two belt winners fight to unify the belt or whatever. You don't need to have the international and the continental belt. It's
AEW has way too many belts.
You got to combine. Like that was the easiest one to combine. The match was great. Will Ospreay is legendary. His entrance, Aerial Assassins, whew, it was good. I have it saved on our Twitter page. It was legendary. It was awesome. It was fun to see. MJF, his entrance was great, donning the USA colors. He's a great wrestler. It lived up to the performance. I loved it. Daniel Garcia, it's a win-win, really, for him. If he gets into this feud with MJF, it'll elevate his profile, and then he'll go down and lay down for MJF if he's on his way out. Or if he stays, if he has a negotiating ploy of like, oh, maybe you'll get some, maybe a win or a surprise win over MJF or some run. Dude, I just thought they made him look like a badass, and maybe if he moves away from the dancing thing, that's the only thing really he's got to do in his character. He's a great wrestler. He's got to take more of a serious edge, and I thought that the way they presented it was perfect. I thought it was an A+ match. MJF and Will Ospreay need to have a lot more matches. I can't wait to see him.
So the next match, I think, suffered from a couple of things. I think it suffered from card placement. It was kind of down on the card. People had been sitting in their seats for 4, 5, 6 hours at this point. You're coming off the heels of Will Ospreay and MJF, which was a pretty fantastic match and obviously a huge highlight of the evening. That was one of those matches that made you buy the pay-per-view. We ended up getting Mercedes Moné defeating Britt Baker to retain her AEW TBS championship. Now, this match was a little bit clunky, suffered from a couple of things that I know you're going to touch on. It was underwhelming, to say the least, and for me, this is just another red flag with Mercedes Moné. Again, I haven't been impressed with her character since she's been introduced. I haven't been impressed with her character since it's evolved into a full-blown heel. I haven't been impressed with her mic work. This match, look, I know what Britt Baker can deliver. I know what Mercedes Moné can deliver. I've seen both of them. They can both wrestle out of their mind. I don't know what happened here. It could have been both of them. It could have been one of them. It wasn't a good match. Don't go out of your way to watch it. It was really, really poor. Go ahead and give your insights on this match, because I know this match really kind of stuck in your craw, and you were pretty upset about this.
Yeah, because you got to deliver. You're paying her $10 million. So first and foremost, the placement, oh my God, if you're Mercedes Moné, you're pissed. You're Britt Baker, you're pissed. Like, man, how do we get the crowd back after MJF and Will Ospreay? That was crazy. And then the way they did the match, I thought was poorly produced. I thought that they needed to kind of get the crowd into it early. They kind of did some wrestling moves, and it took a while for the crowd to get into it. It took a high spot, I think, at the top rope for them to kind of get into it a little bit. And then you have this match, it's 14, 15 minutes, and then the ending is just absolutely god-awful. It's like, what the hell is going on at this very moment? I was disappointed at the highest levels of everything that happened in this match. I just look at it from the perspective of, look, Mercedes Moné cannot just carry her time in AEW based off her name. And Britt Baker has got to be disappointed, too, that this is a feud that, she could have also elevated herself. So all the way around, you can still come on after a barn burner and still give a better effort in terms of the match, the way you do the match. And Sometimes you have to kind of read the crowd a little bit and say, okay, call a high spot a little earlier if you're noticing the crowd's dead. Get them into it a little bit. Do something to rile the crowd up. Oh, it's frustrating because that's what you're getting paid $10 million for, Mercedes Moné. You got to kind of take a challenge and, sometimes turn chicken shit into chicken salad. And that didn't happen. And it just was a dud. Yeah, you can skip it. Skip the match. It was pointless, and great, Mercedes Moné wins, but it did not add to her legacy. It also it kind of, you can make the argument it hurt.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything for a character who's already kind of, I don't want to say has the deck stacked against her, but she's got a tough road to go. Like, she hasn't bursted onto the scene very well. She hasn't done anything of note. It really feels like a lot of things have been gifted to her. Her character just comes off as the Aldi version of Sasha Banks. It's like the non-WWE brand of Sasha Banks, and it's not good. There was no reinvention of herself when she walked out of WWE, when she became a free agent, when she went over to New Japan, when she has wrestled on different parts of the indies. She never reinvented herself, and it's just kind of a tired routine at this point, and it just doesn't serve her any good. And this match itself was just poorly done and wasn't very good. Now, this match could have benefited if it would have went in this next spot. The next spot, we had Jack Perry taking on Darby Allin. Jack Perry ends up defeating Darby Allin in a coffin match. We had a couple of minutes cut off of this match. This match was originally supposed to go about 10 minutes longer. They cut it short. Over in England, they had to be basically off the air by, I believe it was 10 p.m. So to make room for what we got in our main event, they had to dial this back a little bit. We did have a scene where they were dumping gasoline on the coffin, and then Sting comes out for the save. It was a nice way to reintroduce Sting and keep him involved. Sting is talking about attending, I believe, next year's All Out. It's supposed to be taking place in Texas. He lives in Texas, so there was a little bit of a tip of the cap there. So long-term story building, possibly. I don't know. Sting's retired. He might be there, might not. I don't anticipate him wrestling, but it is what it is. Jack Perry ends up winning, defeats Darby Allin. Jon Moxley called Darby Allin out on Dynamite. I don't know. Jon Moxley introduced a new character or a new version of a character. Very interesting. Marina Shafir was with him. Marina Shafir looks great. I don't know what we're doing with this new Jon Moxley iteration. I don't know how it relates to the BCC. But sticking with the BCC, Bryan Danielson was part of that main event, and he took on Swerve Strickland, and this was for the AEW World Championship. This went different than you and I had thought. There was a possibility that this outcome could be what the outcome was, but we didn't see it going this way when we were working through this last week. Bryan Danielson ends up defeating Swerve Strickland. Swerve at one point gets distracted by Hangman Page, allows Bryan Danielson to hit the Psycho Knee, and that leads to the finishing move where Swerve taps out to Bryan Danielson. I guess, first off, because I want to get your thoughts on the match, but I think more importantly, what did you make of the decision to put this belt on Bryan Danielson and for Swerve to end up losing this?
I mean, I can understand it. Look, Danielson's a Hall of Famer, so the match lived up to the billing. I thought it was great. It's a culmination of a story to say that he's the best. Look, he didn't need it. Like, he doesn't need to be the champion. It's crazy. Like, does anybody really think that, But at the same token, if you're looking at it from a money perspective, you know what? Maybe people will come out to pay to see it. You know what I mean? I think maybe it was more of a business decision than a wrestling decision, but I think it hurts Swerve Strickland because his title reign ends a little too short, in my opinion. So I wasn't surprised. People talked about it. We debated it. I just think they did what probably was best for business, but they hurt the other character. I don't think that Swerve. Look, he's a main event guy. It's great, but I think you elevated him. Like, it stinks because you never can go wrong by giving the nod to a Hall of Famer. But at the same token, when you have Swerve Strickland and you decide to go with him, I think that he could have carried it for a year. But I do think that he probably wasn't a guy that's going to put asses in seats. Whereas Danielson, with a couple matches that he could have, will probably draw more tickets. So it's unfortunate. I think Swerve Strickland gets a little bit disrespected. I look at it from his perspective, but you can never have a bad moment when Danielson's in the ring with his family, and he gets kind of like it's like a stamp of approval. Like, okay, congratulations, your run in AEW now is cemented with a title, but maybe I just wish the story would have been told in December to culminate the year and do more with it. So, yeah, it is what it is. You can't really knock it, but if you look at it from the perspective of Swerve Strickland, I don't know how taking the belt off of him really does him any good as a character.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, especially since Will Ospreay went out of his way to put him over, maybe a month ago, a couple weeks ago in their match at Forbidden Door. So to me, it was shocking. And like you said, Bryan Danielson doesn't need this. He is a Hall of Famer. I mean, if this is something that we're just kind of looking to add another notch in his lipstick case, sure, I get that. But I really don't understand. And you can tell he is banged up. He is going to have some surgery when he's all said and done. The one thing I will say, and I think you made a very good point, and I don't know if you even realized you made that good point. Maybe this does help put butts in seats. You basically now set up every match that he has for that belt, because he said on Dynamite, the moment I lose it, I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm out. It now sets up a career versus title match every single time he defends that belt, and it sets up a nice retirement run for him. So when he shows up on Dynamite, it's probably going to be his last Dynamite, or it's the possibility it could be his last Dynamite. If he shows up on Collision, possibility it could be his last Collision. When he shows up at this upcoming pay-per-view next week, could be his last pay-per-view. So it sets up for an importance of a title run for him, because every match could be his last match, and that could help put butts in seats. And if you noticed anything about what you've seen on Dynamite when they did those long shots of the crowd, that crowd wasn't very into anything, and they had a trouble. And that was a smaller stadium. They had trouble selling seats for that venue, and they have trouble selling seats for most of their live shows. And I think this goes back to something you and I talk about. I think if the storytelling is better, they would do a better job and they would pull more gates. But their gates are down, and they're down significantly. This was an event last year that they had sold out, and they sold, I think it was close to 80,000 seats. This year at this same event, they only sold, I think it was like 65,000 seats. Like, that's a huge decrease. That's a lot of money that they're losing. That's another reason why they're not having this in Wembley next year. They're doing it in a smaller venue in Texas, because they can't bring the people in. And I think that goes back to storytelling. I think if your stories are good, you can get people hooked. People want to come see your stuff. So maybe Bryan Danielson having the belt, maybe it's a way to help put butts in seats and sell more tickets. Remains to be seen. We'll see what happens. It was an interesting decision, to say the least, to put the belt on him. But now it makes for some creative storytelling, and it allows you to lean on this retirement run. And it allows you to kind of basically highlight that every single match of his could be his last match, which makes it more important. When we go to the sheet and we go to the calling the card, we end up splitting the point. So I end up leading you still by 4. But that brings us to another opportunity, and that is WWE's Bash at Berlin. That's taking place Saturday, August 31st at 12:30. You can tune in on Peacock. If you don't have the app, get the app. You can check it out there. We start this off with WWE's Women's Tag Team Championship match. You have the Unholy Union versus Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. Now, for me, I'm kind of tired of this. I'm sick and tired of seeing Bianca Belair and Jade fight these two. I'm really tired of seeing these two get fed to Bianca and Jade. If you're trying to make your tag team feel special, you're doing a really bad job. This tag team belt has not felt special since Sasha Banks and Naomi laid them down and walked out of the company, going on 3 years now. So these belts haven't felt important, haven't felt special since then. Bianca and Jade, it just kind of feels like we just keep going back and forth with these guys. And Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill usually end up getting the win. I think at some point, because WWE has done such a bad job with the Unholy Union, I think that Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill get the win here and are your new tag team champs. And I'm not sure what the hell they're going to do with the Unholy Union, because they've done a real shit job of trying to build them up and make them feel important. It's really sad when they constantly get fed to people on SmackDown and you're trying to make them interesting, but you're doing a piss poor job of it. So I got Bianca and I've got Jade. Who do you have winning this match?
Do we start to see maybe the breakup of Belair and Jade Cargill. I think it might be the time to plant the seeds. I think Fire and Dawn should retain. I don't think you should continue to be.
I think they should retain too. I just don't think it's happening.
Yeah, I think they should. I hope they do. I think heel champions are always great. I think that there's opportunities for other teams to go after them. It seems too soon. So I'm going with the champions to retain, and maybe the seeds are planted for the Belair Cargill feud.
All right. So we start off different. That is unique. We then have our strap match: CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because this has been some epic storytelling. Strap matches are always going to be crazy, and I think that everybody wants to see how this is going to play out. To me, I think that CM Punk probably has to get his revenge and get the win. I'm just hoping the match is clean, everybody stays healthy. But I think that for CM Punk, you can't continue to have him take losses. It's been his first time, not getting a win in a long time. So to me, I go CM Punk.
All right, I think CM Punk wins this match as well. If we're going to have a trilogy of matches, you have already had Drew McIntyre win the first. CM Punk has to win the second. It makes the third one that much more important. So I've got CM Punk winning this match as well. We then have a mixed tag match. We've got Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio taking on Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest. This should be an interesting match. I think Rhea and Damian Priest win this. Look, the one thing that's the wild card: Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio have the Judgment Day in their back pocket. That could cause a distraction. But I think Rhea and Damian take care of business and get the win here. So I'm going Rhea Ripley and I'm going Damian Priest.
Yeah, I think both teams can win. I mean, it's not going to hurt. Bad Blood will be interesting too to see how it plays up. But yeah, I think that the signal to us was when Rhea and Dom took an ass whooping from the Judgment Day. That typically means that there's an opportunity for the faces to kind of get over. So I hope it's a good match. It'll be fun to see just how aggressive Rhea is and Dominic Mysterio, how they go at each other. So it's going to be fun on the outside and things like that. Typical mixed tag rules. The guys will fight the guys and the girls will fight the girls. But at the same token, it's going to probably break out into a melee. So let's see what happens in this wild match. But yeah, I do think that Rhea Ripley probably ends up pinning Liv Morgan maybe. Or if you want to protect her, you could have Dom. Dom laying on the mat never hurts anybody.
So you're right. He could probably take the L and it would be okay. Especially, look, Damian Priest is kind of a gargantuan man, and it would make sense for him to end up picking up the W. But it could also add a little bit of fuel to the fire if Rhea pins Liv. Either way, it'll be interesting. Should be a good match. Next, we've got our undisputed WWE Championship. We've got Cody Rhodes taking on Kevin Owens. I'm going to go Cody Rhodes in this match. I don't see a reason for him to drop the belt yet. Kevin Owens is playing nice guy. Interesting. You're always waiting for Kevin Owens to turn. He's the guy who always gets to play the nice guy role, and then he always turns heel on his partner. It'll be interesting. Should be a good match. I think Cody Rhodes beats Kevin Owens, and we kind of move on, and Cody Rhodes gets involved into this Judgment Day storyline. But I've got Cody Rhodes winning this. I think you do as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Kevin Owens wins. No, Cody Rhodes is going to win. It's just intriguing what it means for Kevin Owens. It's going to be a fun match. It's one of those, hey, just put on a good show and the crowd will get into it.
And then we've got our main event. And I moved this one to our main event because to me it just makes sense. Gunther, kind of, again, he's Austrian. He's not German, but native to that area, to that region. Gunther taking on Randy Orton, defending his World Heavyweight Championship. I think we both are picking the same guy. There's no reason for Gunther to lose this. It's, again, he is native to that region. He grew up wrestling the indies in that area. This is a bit of a homecoming for him. He wins, rolls out the champion. Randy Orton will have to figure out how to get that 15th championship some other way. I've got Gunther winning it.
Yeah, Gunther's going to whoop his ass. That's the thing that's going to be interesting is, what does the photo look like of Randy Orton after the match? It's probably going to be blood vessels burst all over the place. I'm going to say, because you can only go two ways. You can go the back or the chest. I think he's going to show a picture of his red, raw chest of all the chops that he's going to take from Gunther. And I just think that, hey, it's what you sign up. You fight Gunther, you're going to go into a battle with a badass mofo. So Gunther's going to win it. It's going to be a great opportunity, I think, too. That the mission is, look, everyone knows it's going to be Gunther. So the mission is to make sure that Randy Orton looks viable as a worthy combatant maybe in the future to that belt or another one. So I do think Randy Orton will deliver and have a great match where a lot of false finishes, where you do see the RKO out of nowhere and Gunther kicks out. So it's going to be fun. They will have the crowd eating out of the palm of their hands. These Euro crowds make the pay-per-views and the PLEs so awesome. So I can't wait to see how the crowd gets into it when Gunther comes out and how much and how loud they sing Randy Orton's theme song.
Yeah, the European crowds are fantastic. They are great. A lot of fun. They make it a much better atmosphere. We run back down the card. We're pretty much in lockstep except for the women's tag team championship match. You've got the Unholy Union winning. I've got Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill winning. For the strap match, we both have CM Punk defeating Drew McIntyre. For the mixed tag team match, we both have Rhea and Damian Priest beating Liv and Dom. And then for the undisputed WWE championship, we've got Cody Rhodes beating Kevin Owens, and then we both have Gunther beating Randy Orton for the World Heavyweight Championship. Should be a fun pay-per-view. I'm loving these WWE pay-per-views. You get 5 matches, they get their time, and they're usually in and out in about 3 hours. It's a pretty good mix. Would you like some news and notes before we get out of here?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
All right, so WWE mixing up the commentary teams again. Michael Cole and Corey Graves will be the commentary team for WWE's SmackDown when it moves to USA Network starting September 13th. Starting next week on Raw, Joe Tessitore is set to begin his time on commentary with WWE after a lengthy career on ESPN doing play-by-play for Monday Night Football, College Game Day, and more. It's been confirmed that Cole will move back to Raw to reunite with Pat McAfee from the Netflix premiere and onward at the start of 2025. McAfee will be absent from now until then due to his college football season obligations with College Game Day. Earlier this week, the Sports Business Journal confirmed that starting September 2nd, WWE's Raw announced team on USA Network will be Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett. Does he swerve when he signs? On Saturday's All-In pay-per-view, there was a taped segment of Swerve Strickland re-signing with AEW. In a new report from Fightful Select, further details have emerged regarding the deal as there were no specific mentions on screen. The report notes that Strickland originally signed a 3-year deal with AEW in March of 2022, meaning his contract ran until March of 2025. Negotiations began during Strickland's reign as AEW champ as he had outperformed the deal he originally signed. Elsewhere, the report states that the contract will see him remain in the company until at least 2028, although there is no confirmed date or length on the contract. The report also notes that the deal is considered one of the biggest deals in the company's history. Swerve Strickland dropped the AEW World Championship at the main event of All In London to Bryan Danielson. Sticking with contract extensions, a WWE tag team has re-upped with the company. Earlier this year, it was revealed that Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo, their WWE contracts were set to expire in August. Garza recently confirmed this publicly and later disclosed that he had re-signed with the company. Fightful Select provided an update noting that Humberto Carrillo had re-signed with WWE. Humberto re-signed with the promotion around the same time as Angel Garza. The report notes that Los Garza, which is Berto and Angel's tag team name, had agreed to multi-year deals to match up with one another. The Legado del Fantasma duo are expected to remain as a tag team as they have been appearing on screen with Santos Escobar and Elektra Lopez. And some more WWE contract news. Per Fightful Select, Nikki Cross signed a new deal with negotiations ongoing back in the spring before the Wyatt 6 debut on WWE television. The deal is said to be a multi-year contract. Cross had been portraying the role of Sister Abigail in the group and seemingly set for her upcoming in-ring debut against Ivy Nile of American Made. And Netflix finally says yes and gives us a date. A release date has been announced for the upcoming Netflix dossier on Mr. McMahon, or titled Mr. McMahon, chronicling the rise and fall of Vince McMahon. The dossier consists of 6 one-hour episodes and is set to detail the life of McMahon as well as WWE's global expansion, as well as the sexual misconduct allegations that led to his eventual resignation from the company. The series will feature interviews from McMahon himself, recorded prior to his resignation from the company, as well as family members, business associates, and other iconic names in wrestling history, as well as the journalist who uncovered the allegations against him. The series will debut on September 25th. And in sad news, former WWE and WCW champion Psycho Sid passed away at the age of 63 after a battle with cancer. The news of Sid's passing was made by his son Gunnar on Facebook on Monday. Sid competed under many names during his career, with him main eventing both WrestleMania 8 and WrestleMania 13 during his reign as WWE champion. He also main evented WCW Starrcade in 2000. Sid won the WWF Championship twice, the WCW World Heavyweight Championship twice, and the USWA United World Heavyweight Championship twice. In addition to world title success, Sid also held the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship once. Sid is survived by his son Gunnar after passing away from cancer on Monday at the age of 63. And that's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Man, it's tough, man. Psycho Sid was crazy. A lot of great matches with Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels, the work that he did in WCW. He was crazy. And I just think that a lot of times the traditional big man do not, you don't have the guys that are that crazy, that athletic, and somebody that really scared the shit out of people. So Psycho Sid, I was glad to hear that people remembered him, and now there's more talk of him getting into the Hall of Fame, and it's just unfortunate that, sometimes when people get out of sight, you forget their legacy. But Psycho Sid, you can always go back on Peacock and watch some of the great matches that he had and some of the great work that he did. The scary, when he cleared out the barbershop with Brutus the Barber Beefcake, him spraying the can, and just the way it looked, it just craziness. And it's unfortunate to hear that news. But look, great legacy, and I think WWE always does a great job memorializing the former talent. And when Triple H remembers somebody publicly, you understand the impact that they did have. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything, if you were a big fan of the AEW pay-per-view, if you think that Bryan Danielson is somebody that should have a long run with the title, or you felt like it was worthy all along, hit us up. Let us know what you think during the pay-per-view. Cody Rhodes, I think that his work has been tremendous, and the opportunities that he does have to fight Kevin Owens, I think, is going to draw a lot of people and some interest in this pay-per-view in Berlin. So it's always fun, 12:30 start. Hopefully it's done by 3:30, and maybe some intrigue in regards to what's asked to Triple H after the card. Can't wait to fire it up next week as we recap Bash in Berlin, but preview All Out. So it's going to be crazy as these pay-per-views continue to string along and come out and go down as to how these matches are going to shake out moving forward as we hit the fall. But it's always a good time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, being entertained, and downloading, giving us your time on our podcast. Can't wait to talk to my guy, Adam the Jock Strozinski, on the next episode of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.